Satang Prasanga.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your families at this time. So today we're moving on to a very beautiful letter. It's to Rupanuga Prabhu, and it's very encouraging in terms of Sankirtan, Prasadam, and Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada really gets into some narrative about how he started the movement in the earlier years and his planning for it. So it starts, Letter to Rupanuga, Los Angeles, 2nd January 1970, and Prabhupada writes it in reverse, numerically, and then he starts. My dear Rupanuga, please accept my blessings. Your letter dated December 21st, wow, along with the picture of the new house was duly received by me while I was in Boston. So December 21st, this is dated, let's just check this, 2nd January. This is 2nd January to December 21st. It's about a month and a half that Prabhupada took to reply to this one, so he must have been somewhere or traveling or ill or something or the other during that time, because it's one of the longest times that Prabhupada took to respond to a letter. Usually he does it in a week, so this is interesting. And then Prabhupada says, we had a really good time at your house in Boston. He calls it his house, the temple center there. And with all the devotees. The devotees used to get so excited when Prabhupada would come. They would call, there's even I think it's a book by Mula Prakriti Mataji called Prabhupada is Coming. It's like it would create such excitement among everyone when they would hear this, that Srila Prabhupada is coming to visit. So they would paint and clean, and because they know he would be so particular. Sometimes the paint is still wet. But they were so... This is just an expression of pure love, you know. When your heart is just full of pure love for someone, you just sacrifice everything. Love is measured in one word, sacrifice. The more you can sacrifice, the more you love. So this is how they would reciprocate and receive Prabhupada. So Prabhupada is saying, I was just visiting there, and goes on to say, and we enjoyed the few days of meeting together in that temple. Prabhupada goes on to say, it was a great transcendental pleasure to meet you all. It's like an aristocratic Englishman, you know. It was a great transcendental pleasure to meet you all. You can just imagine Prabhupada writing like that. But from his heart, what is he feeling? It's like everything with Prabhupada is transcendental, right? So he's saying it's a transcendental pleasure. That means it was so wonderful that they all got together, and whatever they shared and the interactions and the darshans was all transcendental. And it was so pleasurable, Prabhupada is saying. He goes on to say, your statement in the letter, all glories to the Sankirtan, Prasadam and Srimad Bhagavatam, is very welcome. So Prabhupada is acknowledging these 3 points that you brought out, the Srimad Bhagavatam and Prasadam and the Sankirtan, all glories. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, the first verse of Shikshastikam. So Prabhupada is saying this is the combination, this is what will work. And then he gives a very beautiful history of his plan when he was coming to preach in the West. So he says, before coming to your country, when I was in India and I was planning to come here, I was thinking in the same way. I was thinking that my preaching work in this country will be a difficult job for me on account of the country's position being completely different from the principles of Bhakti cult. So Prabhupada is thinking, how am I supposed to do this? It was really, because it's a whole different, he's transplanting a whole culture into another culture, not like they're receptive. I heard a recent interview, I think it was Prabhupada's 50th anniversary, when one of these professors had spoken. And they said that in the time of Jesus preached to his own people. In the time of Muhammad preached to his own people. Here is the first time that somebody has transplanted a whole culture into another country and succeeded equally as good as they did. So can you imagine what effort that took? What an effort that took. So that person was comparing that what they achieved, what Christianity achieved in 50 years, what Islam had achieved in 50 years, Prabhupada had also achieved at this 50th anniversary. He had also achieved in 50 years. They were all on the same progression. They all achieved on the same level. But Prabhupada's effort was transplanted into another culture. Can you imagine that? So he was giving more appreciation actually to Srila Prabhupada for that. So it was a great difficult task. Prabhupada goes on to say, at that time I was also thinking of chanting and dancing in Sankirtan as well as distributing prasadam in the matter of my preaching Bhagavatam. So nobody is going to relate just to the philosophy just like that. We know I actually joined through the university programs in the earlier years. There was a devotee, Vishwambara Prabhu, is a disciple of His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj. And he used to do the university preachings in my time. And I remember I was sitting and I just saw this person come by. He was a white-bodied person, saffron. He just looked amazing, And he walked through the students and he gave out pamphlets. And I put my hand out, but he didn't give me one. He didn't give me one. So I said, hey, okay. But then there was a girl in front of me that read it and just put it aside. So I went up to her and I said, listen, can I read this pamphlet if you finish to this? She says, yeah. So I took it and I looked through it and I saw, there's a bhakti yoga and they're giving prasadam. Oh! So we said, okay. And I was vegetarian by then. So I said, all right, let's go and check this out. Let's see what it is. And then we got there, and in that first class, he brought up the point that you are not God, because the philosophy that I was following before that is that you are God, but you don't know it. So he's saying, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, the soul is eternally part and parcel. It's never that they merge back into God at some time. So that really struck me, that Bhagavad Gita he was quoting from Gita and he spoke Sanskrit, and wow, it really changed my life around. So, and then after, of course, when the prasadam came, it was just out of this world. You've never tasted anything like Krishna prasadam, especially the sweets. Oof. That is something else. So it was an amazing taste that they had in the prasadam. And so the philosophy, prasadam, and of course the kirtan, because I used to play tabla before I joined the movement. So when I heard the sound of the mridanga and the bass of the mridanga and that beautiful melodious rhythm, that style, the rhythmic style of the mridanga that just wants to make you dance. I said, what is this instrument? Sure. So it really, it was a full package for me. And so Prabhupada is saying the same thing here. These three things, Srimad Bhagavatam, or the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, together with prasadam and chanting. That is the full program. Otherwise, very difficult. So Prabhupada is explaining here. So this planning has, by the grace of my Guru Maharaj and Krishna, become successful in the practical field. So Prabhupada is saying, this is why I've become successful. Also the grace of my Guru, Guru Maharaj. So Prabhupada is saying his god brothers also tried, but how did they fail? So he's explaining here. 40 years before, so this is in 1970, so that would have been in 1930s, his god brothers, Prabhupada is saying here, when two of my eldest god brothers came to London with this mission, they simply devoted their time in lecturing to some renowned public place and inviting some leading politicians to preside over the meeting. You know very well that when I began my preaching work in New York, I never followed this philosophy of lecturing amongst the stereotyped politicians and elites of the society. So his two brothers went, I think Bon Maharaj, I forget the other one, maybe it's Tirtha Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, I think. There was two of them that went to London, and they met with just the elite of London. They didn't mix with any, because they thought if they can convince the elite, then naturally the yad yada charati shreshtas tat tat evataro jana sayat pramana kurute lokas tattanuvartate. Because Krishna is saying in Gita, if you, whatever great men do, common men follow. So they went with that philosophy. No prasadam, no chanting. So this is the Yuga Dharma, chanting and prasadam also. And if you don't go with that, then how do you expect people to change their heart? So they were not successful. So Prabhupada is commenting that in the early years, his Guru Maharaj sent two disciples. So Malti Mataji talks about this, that these 6 devotees, actually 6.5 she says, and the half was little Saraswati, Malti's daughter. So the 3 couples would go, Malti and Shyamasundar, Gurudas and Yamuna, and Mukunda, and I forget his wife at that time. So 6 of them and Saraswati. So 6.5 she would say. So Prabhupada was commenting that just see, my Guru Maharaj had sent sannyasis to London and they failed, and I'm sending grihastas. So he was so proud of them and their efforts. He was so proud that they were so sold out by heart. Prabhupada is saying heart and soul. They were sold out to him, and they made such an amazing effort. And through prasadam distribution, Yamuna would make these beautiful cakes, and you know what a good cook she was. And she would go to the Apple reception where they Harrison and the Beatles were recording, and she would leave it there. And then one day it went up to Harrison. Somebody actually took the prasadam up, and he got some prasadam. So he would say, I'm just waiting for the Hare Krishnas. So one day in a press conference, he saw Shyamasundar sitting there, and he walked right up to him and said, hey, where have you guys been? I've been waiting for you. And that's how it started. And Harrison did a lot. George Harrison really did a lot. He donated the manna. And I remember towards the end of his life, he came to Vrindavan. I was there at that time. And we would give him time out in the Samadhi to sit and chant with Prabhupada there. And Shyamasundar was with him. And gradually, his health deteriorated and he left his body. But he did a lot. And he even wanted to be initiated by Prabhupada. But Prabhupada said, you already initiated. He says, how? He says, you are Hari's son of Hari. You are already son of Hari. So no need anymore. So it was so amazing, these devotees and their efforts in trying to serve Srila Prabhupada in this way. So Prabhupada is saying here, and if I would have followed such a policy, then I think that I would also have gone back to India without any success. So it would have been the same thing. So Prabhupada would give ISKCON bullet. This would shoot down the illusion and give you a higher taste in life. Param dristam nivartate. So Prabhupada goes on to say here, I think this policy of Sankirtan, Prasadam and Srimad Bhagavatam has been successful in all the centers. So this is the panacea. Must be. Even Krishna says this in Gita, that if you do yajna, you must distribute prasadam and you must give the brahmana some donation. Otherwise your yajna is incomplete. So we think in terms of doing fire yajna, yes, that is what is described, but we also do Sankirtan yajna. We also, Sankirtan, yajna Sankirtana prair yajantihi sumedasaha. So that is also yajna. So on a regular basis then we should try to do prasadam distribution and some donation for the brahmanas. That's important. So Prabhupada goes on to say, please therefore follow this transcendental policy with heart and soul and make your center as spiritually opulent as far as possible. So when you're doing something for Krishna, do with heart and soul. If we just do with hand and mind, doesn't work. That's karma yoga. When you do with heart and soul, that becomes bhakti yoga. Prabhupada ends saying, your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So a very encouraging letter and very beautiful an inspiration of prasadam, Bhagavatam and chanting. So I hope you have a good day today. Please join us again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.